Hello, lovelies, and welcome to this week's Crystals and Coffee. Thank you for joining me. A little bit late again. I'm sorry. Poorly child last week kind of gets in the way of everything else. But back on track now. So I'm really glad that you've tuned in to, well, figuratively chat with me this week. We're going to be talking about reflection this week, and because we're getting to the end of the year now, it's well into December. Christmas is coming, the New Year's coming, and it's a really busy time of year for a lot of people. Particularly if you celebrate Christmas, you're going to be extremely busy this time of year with gift buying and preparing to see family and preparing meals and parties and going to see Santa and all these things that just feel like there are not enough weekends in 1 month to be able to do everything that you need to do for December. But it usually always comes together and everything goes okay. So I appreciate that everyone's going to be really busy at this time of year. So it's kind of just more of a food for thought towards the end of this month rather than this is something that you need to be thinking about right now. Um, that week between Christmas and New Year where no one really knows what's going on, it's a bit of a limbo, you're not sure what day it is, and it's kind of, you're sort of trapped between two holidays. That's a good week sometimes if you're at a loose end, to try and do some reflection and thinking about the year that's gone by, for good or for bad, and thinking about what it is that you want to come from 2020. So can you believe it? 2020, a whole decade's gone by. When I think of 20 years ago, I don't think of the year 2000. I'm thinking like 1980. It's like completely losing 20 years. It's absolutely crazy. I can't quite believe that the millennium was 20 years ago. But so you could wrap up a lot of reflection in this if you really wanted to. But I think to keep things simple and digestible, it's best to just reflect on the last 12 months. Um, there are lots of very good reasons to reflect on the last 12 months now. If 2019 hasn't been the best year for you, or there's been a lot of ups and downs, or it's just not been particularly magical this year, then it can be quite easy to think, right, I'm going to write 2019 off. New Year's Eve, I'm going to draw a line under it. We're going to go into the new year and forget 2019 ever happened. Now, that might well be a valid thing if you have already reflected on the reasons behind that and processed them and dealt with them. Because if you haven't, then chances are certain things or certain patterns or behavior cycles that transpired in 2019 will rear their heads again in 2020 because we haven't explored where they came from, how to stop them, what we might need to do in order to go down a different path. Maybe there are things in your life that need to change. Maybe there are people in your life that no longer need to be there, or there's new contacts that you need to make, new relationships that need to be forged into in order to get you to where you really want to be, or in a place where you feel content and happy. It's not always about striving to be more, more, more. It's mostly about being happy with where you are, having that great foundation, and then being able to push yourself out of it to gain more of what you want. But if you haven't reflected on those, which may not be great things, it may be difficult things that you don't really want to think back on in 2019. But that's what healing those issues is about. It's not meant to be nice and fluffy. It's not nice and fluffy. If it was, none of us would have anything to heal from. Everything would be fine and dandy. But forcing yourself to face things and process things and feel things that you might not want to feel is very, very difficult. So yeah, it is easier to just say, I'm going to draw a line under it. Don't want to revisit that. But sadly, it might not happen straight away. It might be a little bit into the future. But if it's not dealt with, you will be facing it again, regardless. So you may as well be in control of when you're going to face it and be able to process it on your terms. I think it's a much better way to approach things. It's a much better mindset to have to enable you to feel freer, maybe might be the right word. I'm not sure. But to kind of release you from any kind of negativity around that. On the flip side, you may have had an excellent 2019. Lots of wonderful things may have happened, and it's been a really great, life changing, life building year, and that is brilliant. So, you want to continue that momentum, or you want to sit with the contentment that you may feel grateful and appreciate what you've had this year, and carry that through to 2020. Or you may want to avoid a bit of a come down where one year has been so wonderful you just think, oh gosh, next year I've got nothing planned, nothing's happening, it's going to be a bit of a letdown. So, there's flip sides to everything. So if it has been a fantastic year, then it's still great to do this reflection, because it's a really positive exercise to see how you achieved what you achieved, why what happened. If something happened that had been planned for and it was really great, and you can reflect on how that made you feel, and you want to harness how that felt and carry it through, then that's all of the things that you're able to do, beginning with reflecting on your last 12 months. So for good or for bad, it's an excellent exercise to do, and it can hold you in very good stead to start thinking about and approaching your new year with much hopefully with a lot of positivity and not any negativity or dread about what the year is going to bring. So it might seem a bit daunting to think, okay, well, how then? If it's such a great idea, how do I begin to reflect on things? Well, it's best to do it in a way that kind of break it down into chunks. So you might want to get a notebook or a journal. Again, writing things down helps to, if there's no one that you want to talk this through with, or you don't feel comfortable talking about it, or it's just something, or you just prefer to just write things down, then it's just a really great way to organize your thoughts and just let it out of your mind onto paper, to offload it. So grab your notebook or your journal and think about these questions. So start off with a positive. Get yourself in a good mindset and think of your highlight, or if you can't think of a highlight, just one good thing you can think of that happened this year that was really great. We've all got one thing. It doesn't have to be a massive thing. It can be a really tiny thing, but something that you can remember from this year that made you smile and made you happy. It could have just been a really great night in front of the TV, but you just had a really great evening with great company. It can be something that made you smile. That is the focus. It's not about being something huge like I got married, I had a baby. It doesn't have to be anything like that. It can be something that made you smile, personal to you, that made you happy. So put that down as your what happened, what was one good thing or your highlight of the year. And then to break that down a little bit further, answer, how did this make me feel? So you might want to just list emotions there. Or when you cast your mind back to that situation, how did it make you feel? How do you feel about it now? Just start listing some emotions and feelings that it gave you. Then you want to try and your next question is going to be, what didn't you like this year? What was something, and it's just going to be one thing for the moment, we don't want to overload ourselves, something that happened this year that wasn't great. Again, big or small, something that really made you cross, made you sad. What's something that wasn't great about 2019? And then again, below that, then how did this make me feel? Or how does it make me feel? So you want to list how it made you feel. And it may be something horrible. It may be something that you really don't want to revisit. And I'm not asking you to dissect it. I'm not asking you to go back there and relive it. I don't want you to dwell on it for too long if it's going to be harmful to your mindset or it's going to make you upset. Just as best you can, list some feelings of how that situation made you feel this year. Now you can repeat this exercise about good things and bad things to list different things that you can think of if you don't want to narrow it down to just one good thing, or if there's more than one thing that you need to address from this year that wasn't great, then that's fine. You don't have to do it all in one go. You don't have to do, it can help sometimes to do one big purge, or you may something you may want to revisit every now and again, maybe the next day if it's been a bit emotional, you may want to put that away and go back to it. But try and unpack a number of things on each side, positive and negative, for the year and how they made you feel, and allow yourself to feel it. You don't have to push it down. If you get emotional and you need to cry, then cry. It's okay. Bottling up things in the long run is not going to work out well. There may be somebody close to you that you can confide in for some extra support. I wouldn't necessarily recommend, if you've had a really rough time this year and there are things that are going to upset you, I would actually recommend that you have somebody who you can discuss this with, whether it be a close family member, a friend, a therapist, a well-being practitioner, somebody who you trust, just so you can have a sounding board, and somebody else, so you're not, if you feel like it's going to be a bit overwhelming to deal with on your own, then again, that's okay as well. But the main purpose of this exercise is to reflect and focus on your 2019, for good or for bad. And then once you've done that, then you can go back through each side in turn. So if we deal with, you may have a list, you may have one thing of things that happened this year that you weren't so keen on and didn't make you feel great, and you can go through and piece by piece on each one, reread it to yourself and think about how you are now with that. Is it something that has been dealt with? Is it something that it still needs to be dealt with? Is it something that was brushed under the carpet? Is it something that you can happily say you can leave in 2019 because it was dealt with at the time, it made you feel sad at the time, but you're okay with it now, you want to draw a line under it? That's great. So go through those, the ones that you can leave behind that have been resolved and it was just something that happened at some point this year and you want to move on, then that's great. We can strike through that and we can do the figurative line under it and move on. However, if there are things on that list that have not been resolved, there are things that may come back or are ongoing, then that's something that to bear in mind, that you're not going to be able to just sweep it under the carpet. At some point there needs to be a resolution. So at this point you could just for your own sake start to maybe note down next to these issues, maybe there's somebody that you could talk to. Maybe there is somebody that, if it was to do with another person, that maybe you don't really need around anymore, someone who's quite negative or toxic in your life that you need to talk to, and just leave that person behind, or you've moved on. As hard as that might seem to do, sometimes it can be the best thing to do, is that if you've got somebody in your life who is just not bringing you any good and is just a chore and is really difficult to deal with, it's ignoring the issue isn't going to help. It needs to be addressed. I can't give any specific advice about that because there are so many different variables, so many different things. It could be a family member, it could be somebody in a group of friends. It's not going to be easy, but it's something to consider for yourself, that if there is a toxic person who isn't going to be easy to leave behind and isn't going to move away, then maybe you need to think about how to protect yourself from said person. Maybe there are some boundaries that need to be put in. Maybe it's time to start saying no when you would normally, as a reflex, say yes, and putting those boundaries around you to protect you from that situation recurring again. So it can always be in your control, the ball in your court, protecting your energy, protecting how you feel. So you can go through these potentially unresolved issues and note down what you might be able to do or what you feel would be the best thing to resolve that issue, or what would make you feel better. And it could just be something like, okay, this person isn't going to go away. It could be a colleague, someone that you have to see every day, but you get to control how you feel about that. They cannot control your feelings. This is something that I've spoken about in past episodes, is that yes, we're all human and we will react to people, but ultimately, once the initial reaction has passed, we can decide how we want to feel about this. We do not give our power to those other people. We are in charge of how we feel. And if their actions affect us negatively, then we can put up boundaries and we can control the situation from our point of view. So that's something to think about as well. So these are little notes that you can make for yourself to know that this isn't something that you can just leave behind. You've addressed it, you've brought it to the fore, you've brought it up, you've sat with it, you've thought about it, and you've jotted down some potential resolutions to enable you to move on from that and not drag it through your next year. With the positive stuff, of course, it's going to be a lot more uplifting and it's going to be a lot nicer to deal with. So it's good to now follow up all of that potentially negative or sad energy. We now move to the positive, the things that made us smile, why they made us smile, how did it happen, how can we make it happen again. These are feelings that we want to continue to feel throughout 2020. There's a very similar exercise of just jotting down some notes with yourself about how can I feel this way in 2020? What would make me feel this way? Would it be that same thing happening again? Would it be different things? It's about noting down to yourself things that could happen, or things that you can do, steps that you can take in 2020 to continue feeling that way, or for that to happen again, or for you to rebuild from a sadder place. Things that you can control. Again, it's about being in charge of your own energy, owning your own energy, owning your own power, and putting those steps in place as the tiny weeny baby steps. They don't have to be any big leaps. We're not thinking through to next December here. We're just thinking about the new year, how we can start things off on the right foot and get things rolling and helping us feel good. Because, you know, everyone has a little bit of a crash in January. Everything's a bit deflated. I know here in the UK, it's absolutely freezing in January, and then it rains and it rains and it rains until pretty much springtime. It's just cold and miserable and grey and gloomy. No matter where you are in the UK, that's what it's like. We're used to it. We know it's coming. So that's why we look at doing cozy, happy, snuggly things that all of the festivity of the holiday season brings, and somehow seems to take a sharp switch off in the new year. But it's about continuing feeling that nice, warm, fuzzy feeling and bringing some of that coziness through into the new year. So if you can go through your positive things that made you smile, things that made you happy, or maybe they didn't happen this year, but you want them to happen next year because you know that if such and such happened, this is how it would make me feel. So then you think about, right, so how do I get such and such to happen? And you can start jotting down some notes, even if it feels really far-fetched and you don't really know how you'll get there yet. It's about putting it out there. It's your intention. It's how you want to feel. This will make me feel this way. Let's think about how I'm going to get there. So we're not going to do the whole process in one go. We're just brainstorming now. We're doing some reflection and we're brainstorming about how we want our 2020 to play out. So start off with this reflection exercise. Look at the bad, face the bad, note down, again, go back and note down whether it's resolved, how it needs to be resolved, what boundaries can you put in place, do you need to speak to someone, have a confidant, someone that you can confide in if it's something particularly traumatic for you. Do not try and do this alone. If it is, you need support. Everybody needs support, and it's okay to ask. There are people who love you, people who want to support you, and there may even be in a situation where they're just waiting for you to ask for their help. So go ahead and do it, and have a wonderful holiday season. And with the positivity, again, focus on that positivity. That's the energy you want to harness. That's what we want to take through. That's what we want to manifest for the next year. So go through and think about all those things that you would like to happen and how they'll make you feel. So it's just a bit of journaling to do over the next few weeks between now and New Year. Just start purging all those things going around in your head. And it's all about reflection. We're not thinking too far ahead at the moment. We're reflecting on what happened and what possibly we would like to happen next year to enable us to feel good and be in a good place. So in the next episode, I'm going to go through some more journal points and a little bit more proactive points where we can start to put those little step-by-step things into more of a plan and get you, so then come January, you've got a little bit of a plan, you've got some action steps. You're not just left hanging thinking, oh, what's this year going to hold for me? I don't have a plan. I don't know what to do. I'm someone who likes to have a plan, as even if it's really loose. I like to have an idea of where I'm going. I like to have a point of reference to aim at. So that's what we'll talk about in the next episode, about taking these reflections and turning them into positive, proactive steps. So that's what you've got to look forward to next week. Thank you for listening to me ramble on. It's quite a long episode. This is something I feel quite strongly about. And I know from my own experiences, it's really important to reflect and face things and bring them to the surface. It's something I've done for myself, in my own self-care, in my own therapy, in my own coaching sessions I have with my coach. And therefore, I can then pass on those experiences and what I've gained and methods that I've used onto you, because I know they work as I've done them. So I'm speaking the truth here. These things will help, I promise. So have fun journaling. Have fun with all the festivities if you're wrapped up in that at the moment. Hope it's not too stressful for you. I'm on the brink of it being too stressful for me at the moment. So I'm going to try and take a step back and chill out a little bit. And try and enjoy the season rather than being really, really stressed all the time. As always, I love to hear from you. So if you have any questions or you want to contact me for any other reason at all, then the links to my socials are in the link in the description and in my profile. And again, the link in the description is there for my Patreon. If you want to take a look at that, where there's going to be exclusive podcast episodes, I'm going to be doing monthly Q&As, monthly crystal vlogs, so you can actually see things that I'm talking about, grids, candle magic, things like that. And there's also an opportunity to ask me questions directly in a kind of AMA situation. So have a look, click on the link, the Patreon, so you can become a Crystals and Coffee member from as little as $1 a month. It's really, really simple. Like I say, check out that link in the description, and I will be back to talk about some action steps for 2020 in the next episode. Speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.